This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualfon truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualfon's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Mission Qualfon, the podcast where Jeremy and I talk about all the things we love about the company we work for. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm great and excited, surprised, shocked that we are coming to the end of season 3 of the podcast. That's just crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it? No, it's the last few years just flew by. I cannot believe it's November 2022.
Yeah.
Crazy experience, this life experience happens in a flash. And actually that's a perfect lead-in into our interview, because I think there's a moment you'll hear in the interview where I like catch my breath because I realize how young the interviewee is compared to me. And I was like, oh, just like choke on the mic, like, oh my gosh. But she is wonderful. She's a firecracker. And I'm so excited to introduce her to our employees, to our listeners, to everyone. I'm excited for the future of our company. We have some fantastic female leadership, and I'm all about highlighting them.
So we are very excited to have with us today our VP of Operations for both Bogota and Mexico, Jordane Sandoval is our guest. Hi, Jordane. How are you?
Hi, team. Very pleased to meet both of you. I've heard a few podcasts, so I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak.
Welcome to not only the podcast, but really to Qualfon. You are at this point two months into your tenure with us.
2 months short. It's been an exciting weeks for sure. And I'm looking forward to turning that year and having that same eagerness to learn from the company. It's just been an amazing journey so far.
We joked before the podcast that it'd be fun to re-interview you in 6 months.
6 months it is. We'll write it down and make sure that I have the same energy moving forward.
No pressure, Qualfon. No pressure at all. So I am excited to hear all about you, and I'm really excited to hear about the 2 sites that you oversee. I have not had an opportunity to go there, so I'm just excited to learn all about you and the sites. So tell us your background, how you ended up at Qualfon, and then we'll just get into the conversation.
So before I got here, I was working for a decade in insurance company industry. So it's a different change for sure, but the model is the same. It was divided in between, let's say, the insurance side of it and the BPO side of it. So basically, from my end, I was born and raised there, I would say. I'm right now 34, so it's quite a piece of my life, if you know what I mean. And I was always eager to learn and have a change of scope, just because it had been such a long time for us. I think here in Qualfon the same. It feels like a family. So I wanted to bring more to the table, both externally and internally. And I think the reason why I decided to change is learning. I would say that would be one. And 2, I wanted to engage in a sense that it was a different proactive approach on leadership. And I just got like a call from obviously a few interests in Qualfon. And I wanted to make sure that I was doing right, not only on work-wise, but also on a personal level. And I felt like I could bring more to the table if I changed of companies. And as I progressed in the interview, surprisingly, I heard of the mission, and I was very eager to learn more on each call and interview I got. And it was like layers for me. Interesting enough, each one has a side to the story. But what I can hear that was resounding in between everybody is basically be the best and make people's life better. And I feel that just sums up what I live for on a day-to-day basis. And it's kind of a calling that I already had in me, but sometimes if you feel it differently, and I just felt like it was the right time to make that change.
So I've heard a lot about our interview process.
It is an interesting, very tied up and long process, but it just shows how much they care. And obviously, I won't say their names just out of respect, but I felt that like they have the time and interest in me. So they took the time, they brought in everybody that I can think of in the C-level. I was very amazed on how much we invested in these interviews. Like each one of them must have lasted an hour, but everybody had a story to tell to their life in Qualfon and how much passion they have to make sure that each account is blossoming, that our team is growing. And above all, it's just like how they interconnected with the mission of Qualfon to ensure that they deliver their day-to-day expectation with a client and go above and beyond. So yeah, it was a very different experience on, I would say, a normal model of interviews. That's what made it so special. When it's harder to achieve, I would say that the investment and timing as well, given if the outcome is positive.
I can attest that the C-levels are very detail oriented and invest a lot of effort and time into the talent that we want to bring to Qualfon. So that also must say a lot about you, because I know, in this market, there's a lot of people applying for jobs. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you. So where are you located?
I'm located in Mexico City. I'm working, I would say, a hybrid model. So I'm the majority of the time in the office. And if not, I'm working from home. I'm also a mother. So for me, it's all about balance, making sure that I have enough time invested specifically for Mexico and Bogota. Even though Mexico is where the heart is from Qualfon, or where we started, at the end of the day, we just moved from one site to a different site. So everybody does have this sensation that they just recently moved. And because of that, that's making changes internally and externally as a company. So I'm trying to provide a structure, making sure that everybody has what they need. We just recently joined 2 site directors, one for Bogota and one for Mexico. They have, I would say, a month at given in the company. One of them already actually was part of the team for Qualfon back, and they actually appear in the books of Qualfon on the calling. I was like, wait a minute, I know this name. And right assured, I had an interview with her, and I was very amazed and pleased that she was going to join, like it was a blessing from above, if you know what I mean. I was really happy to see her join again the company. And then in the site of Bogota, it's also new. Like they just started at the beginning of the year. We're working really hard to get our company up and running and have a one true Qualfon approach on both ends. So for me, it's all about making sure that I'm where I'm needed. So if that means being in site, I will. If that means going back and forth in between Mexico and Bogota, that is something that is challenging, but I'm willing to do to make sure that it works right.
I just want to jump in and say that we didn't mention her name, but I'll mention her name. Alejandra Romero is who you were talking about, who's our site director in Mexico. She's actually coming up as a guest on the podcast, and you're absolutely right, Jordane. She has a big history with Qualfon, and you mentioned that she's mentioned in our book called Answering the Call. And yes, so she's coming up, and we're excited.
Yeah, she has a interesting story as well. And just so you know, Jordane, so anyone from the company will send us recommendations, because Jeremy and I only know a certain amount, of people within the company, and we want to try to get people from every location and every demographic. And it's an effort. And both you and Alejandra came in from our CEO, Mike Morrow. He thought you guys would be great guests for the podcast. So we're excited to hear about you. So you kind of already mentioned the mission, how you heard about it. So first of all, the way it was communicated to you, it made sense. You identified with it. Because sometimes I always wonder, and Jeremy and I will talk about that. We talk about this mission a lot. And if you don't know what it is, it could sound weird.
It might, but I'm all about founding with love. So it might have been something that it was new to me for sure. But then after speaking with, all the main components of the company, I was impressed because you can't place a word sometimes when it comes to leadership. It's really difficult to interconnect the goals of a company versus what leadership should really be like. And I know everybody is struggling right now with how we need to improve our interconnection because of home office and the pandemic that we just all recently passed or is still ongoing in certain points. But for me, it's very much of, leadership is something you can't turn off. And when I just heard, you found by love, it just clicked on me. So it might have been something different for sure. But as I progressed, and I've even like had the opportunity a few weeks ago to hear Alfonso, there was a Congress for families, and he was literally giving a purpose of meaning, not only and for the company itself, but I literally ended up being in another meeting, and it was him and his wife, and they were talking about purpose and mission within the family too. So for me, it's like that balance that we're looking for in between being a good leader, being a good mother, being a good employee, making sure your team has what they need to deliver to make sure that we're the best BPO. So it does seem like a challenge when you're new, but I just felt like it was so near to me.
Jordan, you mentioned the mission, and I love the way you said it. It felt very near to you. I really like those words that you used. I'm interested to hear how, obviously, you said the mission was new to you, but at the same time, it resonated with you because the concepts are not new to you. It sounds like that's something that has been part of you your whole life, probably. So my question is, how does this mission inform the way that you lead people?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say that the first thing was just making sure that I was looking at it the correct angle, because I know that I was onboarded and recently introduced to the mission. So the first thing was just making sure that it is aligned to what leadership truly means to me. For me, those 4 agreements that we have, basically, keep the commitment, move fast, add value, and speed it wisely. Those are the mottos of how I operate on a daily and weekly basis. So it does sound intense for sure, but I think that Ale does bring to the table, that additional foundation that I'm looking for in the team. And at the same time, we do make a good mix in what we're looking for the leadership. So for me, it's all about the mentoring, right? So I would say that I'm still in the process of learning, but it just interconnects. So those 4 values for me, at the end of the day, they become agreements, but those are already embedded, I would say, in my DNA, just because of how I was built out. So everything I do is because of consent and what I've learned from my people. And if they need something different when it comes to styles of leadership, I'm really good at, I would say, dwelling with changing, which is one of the things that I'm really good at too. So anything that needs improvement or that is imperative, I just make sure to circle back with my team to make sure that they are having a positive note on the changes that are being done. And I know moving fast is a priority, but when it comes to the people, I would say that our teams right now are managing so much on a day-to-day that it's also valuable to look at the mission in the sense of praising our team. And for me, being participant on not only what needs to be driven on a KPI scale point or on a budget or even in a planning ramp up, it's also giving the time back, for example, for customer experience and inviting the mission team so that they can deliver an additional sense of what truly it means to entrust to our team, how important they are in our lives and how they make those changes. And if they're happy and we're happy with them, what they'll deliver is a positive outcome both to the client and also to our programs.
I have one more question. And
Sure.
I have one more question too, Marisol.
By all means.
Two more questions.
Two more questions. Okay, so we joked around about 6 months from now doing a follow-up, but honestly, like a year from now, 5 years from now, when you're past the newness and the excitement, looking back, what would you like the next couple of years to look like as far as what the company can provide for you? Like what, we're in a market right now where we're competing for talent constantly, and every company is trying to highlight all the different benefits. And I really am curious from your perspective of being new, like what can we do as a company, do you think, to, the future you be still as happy and excited to work here and passionate?
Well, that's another good question for sure. I think that for me, it's not what the company can provide, but more like as we progress on our tenure, that I'm able to look back and say that as a team or as a whole, because there's so many components, like we're working internationally. I mean, I would say that we're interconnected. And at the end of the day, for Mexico and Bogota, that's only where the location is at. But there's so many, I would say, support functions that are in the States. And it's just making sure that when I do look back, that I can proudly say that we made our team stronger, that we delivered a retention plan that is beneficial to our agents, to our operation and managers, and that we can make a positive change in all of these families based on, I would say, inflation, benefit compensations, and that as an equal, that we can just basically look at the results and say we prize them and we're doing even better. The recommendations we give out to our clients are sharp. We know our business even more than they do because of all the investment that we have into each one of these programs, and that the footprint on a scale for the FDEs, it's double the amount, not only because we want to see them grow, but because that also quantifies on the level of interest that we have for each one of the opportunities we get granted by our vendors. So I'm not really looking forward to what Qualfon could give to me, but rather what the story is going to look like 5 years from now. As you heard, I'm very invested. So for me, if it's a decade or even more, I just feel blessed. But I just want to make sure that every year there's a change that transcends in between both Mexico and Bogota.
So let me ask you about Bogota, because Bogota is new. Our site in Bogota is fairly new. You mentioned earlier that we started in Mexico, so we have deep roots in Mexico. Tell us about Bogota. Tell us what Bogota is like for those of us that have never been there or aren't familiar with Bogota, but tell us what that site is like, what the people are like. What's your experience with Bogota been like?
So first thing is that I've known Bogota for a few years before I actually came into Qualfon. And the first impression of the country is it's a place that I would be even interested in recommending to a place to live in, even if it's 1 or 2 years. And the reason behind it is because the culture is very similar and at the same time very different than Mexico. And the reason why I'm saying is because at the end of the day, even though we all have a similar approach to the culture, we have, the people are very different in comparison to Mexico. And by all means, obviously, you're always looking for something that is not within range. But I feel like whenever I visit, just everybody in general are real sweet-hearted, like they're devoted to what they do. They're very professional. They entrust by the first impression, the trust that they can impose on a person. So I just feel welcomed in the site from the very first time I came in. And I was impressed on how, even though it was a new site, the mission, the strides, the values, they were already there in the facility. Something that was maybe different for Mexico, but that changed a few weeks ago. We did all the branding inside of the facility for Mexico City. So I do like that on a technology and facility level, the ground for Bogota is just very, I would say, R8 2020s, where you can see that it's all new, right? So even though the building is around 30 years old, the inside of it, it's like gorgeous. The way the layout is done, the marketing branding of the company, you just feel like very into the vibe that they have. And the culture is different because they're very serviceful. So for example, they'll welcome you, they'll go downstairs for you, they'll treat their team and the mission for the agents in a very particular way. I know somebody specifically, I won't say her name, but she's part of the team of mission in Bogota. She's the only resource we have, and I have to call her out because she'll literally do double shifts, not because of anything but interest, to make sure that she can gather the pictures of all the activities she's doing on a weekly basis so that she won't let out either the afternoon or the morning shift. So very driven, people driven, and also making sure that everybody's accounted for. I can tell you that as soon as you arrive to the desk, the receptionist, she's goes above and beyond, like so courteous, very attentive, interested to grow as well. And she lets you know right off the bat, like whenever you have that conversation with her, it's just amazing how nice and direct she is. And then when it comes to the agents, like the way that they treat each other is how they treat the client. And it's a very, I would say, empathetic and with quality driven resource, but it becomes natural for them. And I'm sure that it's because of the country. And now regarding the city, let me tell you that there's not much time to do, any visiting anywhere, but like if you're able to just go out and have dinner, as an example, just the cuisine, and I'm very interested in food too.
Oh, yes.
We all are.
Yes.
But the food is really good. Like I would say that they have great dishes and that are different to what I normally would eat here in Mexico. And Mexico has a really good overall, I would say cuisine, but Bogota is just different for me. So I am driven to the challenge for sure for meeting a different country. But by all means, the sense that I get there is that they're just so very welcoming and passionate for their work and their lives in general. And that just, I don't know, brings the positive side and end of me just because it makes you feel like I want to make sure that this site blooms.
Right. Well, not to put any pressure on you, but Marisol and I would love to go to Bogota.
By all means. We just had Tracy visiting us last week in Mexico, and he called out the branding and how he wants to set an example with Mexico's site. And while he was talking, obviously we were talking about how productivity and efficiency and ownership, it comes all fully in way when you have that branding in place inside of the sites. And you just feel like everybody feels more close to the company, even if you're from a distance coming to visit and just seeing that change of different and living, the Qualfon life. For me, that's one part. But for the other side of it, I would love to have people in Bogota as well, and even more so if both of you join. So we're looking forward. I mean, we will have a few more trips on our way this year. And if by any chance you do have the time, by all means, we'll be glad to receive you there.
I would love to go. I would go for vacation to Colombia. I love
Yeah, well, that doesn't really happen when you're traveling for work.
I know.
But if you can go for vacation, then maybe you'll learn more from the city and the country than I do. Because, I mean, in all honest truth, whenever we go, it's just like, 100% invested day over day, making sure that we can basically be as productive as we can in sight. So I've been there a few times.
In the next couple of years, I'm going to check in with you and say, have you taken a vacation day in Colombia? Because you deserve one.
Not good at tracking those, if you know what I mean. But to be honest with you, whenever I'm on vacation, I'll probably end up opening my phone or looking at my emails, working in my time and balance on my personal levels too, because that's something that I know that is a great area of opportunity of mine. I'm sure you already heard Mike podcast. He was referring to two sweet ladies, and one of them was me, actually. So it's like turn off your computer and try to have some space in between so that you can be more productive on the following day to come.
When you mentioned your age, I almost had a mini heart attack because it was like, oh, what an amazing future you have. And I'm so excited for you. Like I want to check in with you every couple years just to see how you're progressing and if your passion is, if you're finding your total vocation within the company, because I think we're very lucky that you have come to join us. And I do think people in ops have to learn to, in operations have to learn to balance their time, because especially with, the smartphone, you have to disconnect. You have to disconnect. And usually, the thing is, all of you have such great teams. At least that's what I hear through the grapevine. And you trust in them that when you go, they'll get the job done, because that's what we want. We want everyone to have a full and balanced life here at Qualfon, which is new for me, especially in the BPO space. I used to be one of those people that if I had a family emergency, I would feel like I couldn't leave. And it's something that I had to like learn here at Qualfon. That's like, you have a family emergency, like go.
Well, I've had a few so far, and I mean, not to say anything in addition, but just positive and kudos for my boss, Mike. But I had like a planned doctor's appointment for my two kids, and those are the ones that you can't schedule, a change of date or hour. It's just what they give out to you because that's how insurance works here in Mexico, at least medical one. And it was a really important appointment for me, and he just said, take the date. Like, obviously, I was back by midday, engaging everybody and trying to make sure that I could leverage the time that I stepped out. But it just made me feel so different than I am accustomed to, because typically whenever I say, you know what, I need some time for an emergency to be with my family or whatever that might be, and it collides with my schedule, instead of getting a negative response or tone about it, it was on the contrary. It's like, don't worry, focus on your children, make sure that they are doing well. And if they're well, then you're okay. And then if you're okay, then you'll be able to work well. So for me, it just made, I would say, my day. And also, those are the type of things that I had been postponing for a few years. My two twins have 6 years, and there's so many things that I left out because I was trying to compensate. And now that I'm here, I just feel like I can be open about it and just feel that there's this repercussion in between all of us of understanding the needs of, both obviously our achievement and results as a company, but also about the, employee values and the family values too. And they're all tied in between or interconnected. So that's making me really happy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think it boils down to that each person philosophy. It's really, this is something that we're very passionate about, that we want everyone to have a wonderful human experience, and what you do for your job is part of that. And we want to be that kind of company that makes people's lives better.
You certainly
All
do.
right.
I think everybody does think big, but the most important thing is making sure that we're all equally taken care of. So for me, as long as there's a positive progress and we can make sure that it works for our people, then count me all in for another decade
That's
or more.
What I was getting at about your age was that I was just thinking back in the day. Jeremy and both Jason Scarpe are constantly dinging me for my ageism, but back in the day, I just imagine if I was at your point in your career, but working for a company like Qualfon, how different that was from 20 years ago. So welcome to Qualfon. Looking forward to seeing you shine bright at our company.
Absolutely. And Jordane, thank you so much for joining us. We know how busy you are, and you made the time to join us for the podcast. And Marisol, when you said earlier that you and I don't know everyone in the company, what I've found since we started the podcast is people avoid us now, right? They don't want to have to come.
I don't think they avoid us. Like, I was surprised that you invited me, one, but two, I was more surprised to see that you keep them going. Like, it literally means that we can expect a new podcast our way, and each one of them brings a different story in line. So I'm one of the ones that actually listens to them late at night and just go and say the hurrah or kudos and lincolning, because I'm so proud of the team and the way that they're being managed. Like, hats off for both of you, because I honestly feel more connected. Even with the people that I work, I've been able to hear them out in this space. And it's a time to, unravel and just speak from truth and be kind to one another. And you learn from each other's experience. So in all honest truth, I think that you should keep them going even once a week, if you know what I mean.
You're one of those. There's some that want to do that.
I'm a podcast kind of girl. Yeah, I'm one of those for sure.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. That it means a lot to us. And yeah, we're rounding 60, and we have a wonderful group of people at Qualfon. And I think what we hope to bring is just 20-30 minutes of reminding everyone why we do what we do.
Yeah, and if you run a participants, let me know. I have a few that I could suggest to that I would be interested in here. So by all means,
please do. Always.
I'm sure they're shy, but we can bring them to the table and see what they can bring too.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and good luck, and can't wait to meet you in person.
Likewise, I hope to see both of you soon in Bogota or Mexico.
Thank you. Marisol, I think at the very beginning you used the word firecracker. Is that right? Is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Yes. Well, Jordane is absolutely a firecracker, just tons of energy. Any call I've been on with her, that's just the way she is. And I love being around just very positive, motivating, upbeat people like her. And I really enjoyed the interview.
I did too. I hadn't met her. I don't think I'd been on a call with her per se. So it was a completely new experience. And I immediately emailed Mike Mara, our CEO, and I was like, that was a great referral. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a lot of energy, just high energy. Yeah.
Just high energy. Yeah. And for her role, that is exactly what she needs. So, and a mother of twins. So
Yes. Wow. Could you imagine? Well, you can imagine because you're the mother of twins too, but I can't imagine two babies at the same time.
I can. I lived it. I don't think we have the hour that it would need to deconstruct that experience. But it's a wonderful blessing, and it's obvious that she can handle that and so much more. So I'm excited for her and for the company.
Well, we are closing in on the end of season 3, and we've got 2 more interviews that I'm really looking forward to before we wrap out the season.
I'm super excited for the next 2 episodes. We have Alejandra Romero coming up, who has a fascinating history. She was with the company from very early on. I actually read about her first in a book that was written about the company and the founder. And so I'm excited. I have so many questions to ask Alejandro Romero. That's going to be a really interesting story. And then we're ending the season with a very special guest, Alfonso Gonzalez Jr., son of Alfonso Gonzalez Sr., our founder. And that is a great episode to end the season with. And I'm excited. I'm super excited. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Please make sure to listen, subscribe, share with anyone you think might find the story of our company interesting. And if you'd like to learn more about our company, you can always go to our website at Qualfon, QUALFON.com. We have a lot of great information out there. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, you could reach us through our website. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Marisol. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.